Tips and strategies for effective differentiation. This program is aimed to supporting teachers to improve instructions for all students. Differentiation. All students are different and learn differently. Teachers are told all the time to differentiate, but we know that there are a lot of challenges to differentiation. This program will help you with those challenges. How do we differentiate? Let's call it the 3 P's. There are 3 ways we can differentiate. Presentation, in how it is taught. Process, in how it is done by the students. Product, in how students demonstrate knowledge. Presentation. How is it taught? How do you present what needs to be learned? Teacher or student-centered? Ask yourself, does your presentation fit the differences between students? Do you reach them all? Whole class instruction, which is usually a teacher-centered lecture or demonstration. All students watch and listen at the same time and are expected to learn and remember at the same time. This usually works at the beginning of a new team or project. Small group instruction. You can have a teacher group or instruction table where you give explanation. Other student groups are doing either independent work or problem solving or cooperative group work in the centers. This works as soon as you have assessed the different levels in your group. Stations or centers. This is a student-centered way of processing information where they are doing some kind of discovery activity. They may even have choice activities where they go from station to station. Centers work as soon as you know the learning strengths of your students. Cooperative groups, where they could have some problem-based learning or even traditional book learning, but they are helping each other. Social learning works for all students. Traditional lecture. It's traditionally a kind of lecture or demo with a teacher in front of the room next to the blackboard. We call it chalk and talk or whole class instruction. But even within this model, we can differentiate to meet the needs of our students either by ability or learning styles. Remember, some students are visual, some are auditory learners, some are hands-on, and some need to move. Alternative note-taking. So even though we have a traditional whole class instruction, we can teach students alternative noting such as Cornell notes or scientific notebook. We can even print out the notes for those students who are slower and can't write them out as quickly as we are talking. Manipulatives and hands-on materials. Even though you give a whole group instruction, we could have students use manipulatives at their seats, so they're using some hands-on materials to meet their different learning styles. This can be an abacus, a fraction box, a 100 field, or demonstration clock. Small groups. We could also have small group instructions. You can use it for remediation while the other groups may do independent study. You can also use it for choice activities or social learning. Process. How is it done? How can a teacher differentiate? Traditional pencil and paper. You can have traditional paper and pencil activities, worksheets, or bookwork, and even here you can still differentiate by telling some students to do different amounts of assignments or encourage some to use manipulatives. Cooperative groups, where you have the ability levels and they help each other and learn from each other's learning style. Of course, students don't ask questions for each other, but they explain it. This helps them organize their thoughts and finding the right words. In this setting, students must be allowed to talk softly to each other. In a classroom with cooperative groups, you'll hear the learning buzz, the sound of children at work. Stations, where the students move from center to center and do some kind of discovery, or open student center activity at their own level. This can be done individually or in pairs. Compacting, when you do your pre-assessment and find out that some students already understand and know the content, so there's no reason for them to do that lesson again. You have them move on to a different standard and a different activity. Independent contracts. This can be for English language learners, for special ed students who have their own IEPs, or for advanced students that have to do some kind of enrichment project. Choice opportunity. This is a great way for students to choose different ways to get the content. They may want to go to a listening center or work with a partner or read silently. Product. How do students demonstrate their knowledge of the standards? Traditional assessment. Even within traditional assessments, you can differentiate. Some students can be asked to solve 5 problems and some students can be responsible for 10. Written reports. You can differentiate in what type of report you expect. Of course, all reports must be made by students themselves. It is a way for them to process information while showing what they have learned. The student can make a collage, write a story, draw the essence of a text, compose a song, write and perform a skit or poem. Art and video projects. For students who are more artistic and visually inclined, with small cameras or even their cell phones, the students can explain a topic such as how to become an aircraft pilot or the growth of a plant. Oral reports and presentations. For students who are good talkers, they can stand up in front of the room and do a great presentation. PowerPoint presentations. This is a lovely way to show any kind of project work. Sometimes that enables students to be a little more creative and produce a visually exciting presentation. Skits, songs, and dance. This is a great opportunity for a social studies lesson. They can do a skit that lets you know they understand the project work. They demonstrate what they know, but not in a written test. This is a free and creative way of presenting information and assessing knowledge. Managing differentiation. Decide what you want to teach using your core content. Your standards decide what I call the outcomes and what you want the students to be able to do at the end of your lesson. Pre-assess to determine the existing knowledge and learning needs of all your students. You don't know what to teach if you don't know what the students already know. So you must pre-assess. Create the type of groups you want. Depending on your goal, you choose the type of grouping you need. Ability groups. These groups are great when you're going to do some remediation or enrichment work. Cooperative groups. If you're going to do some project-based learning or problem solving, you want to encourage social learning. Modality groups, where they can get the benefit of different learning styles and talents. You have materials in your class to accommodate the different learning styles, such as, for visual learners, they would need art materials, picture books, movies. Linguistic learners will need poems, text, and song lyrics. For kinesthetic learners, you would use dance, exercise, and movement. And musical learners who would use songs, rhythm, and musical instruments to learn. Preparation and organization. You must be well prepared and well organized in order for this to be a success. If you don't take the time to prepare, you're going to set the students and yourself up for failure. Materials. Think about your materials. How will you distribute these materials? How will students get it? Will they be in baggies or bins on the tables? Or will they come up one at a time to collect their materials from their personal drawer? Directions. How will you give them directions? If you're going to say it in front of the class, make sure that you don't do more than 3 steps at a time, and maybe write the instructions on the whiteboard. If you're going to do stations, put instruction signs at the stations. Or you can print out the directions and give each student their own copy. Noise levels. What kind of noise is acceptable? Social learning involves talking, but you don't want the talking to end in screaming. Student movement. You need to think this out ahead of time so that they are not crashing into each other, as this may cause opportunities for conflict. Students have to know where the materials are, and they should be allowed to get it when they need it. But organize it well to give your students maximum effective learning time. Room arrangement. You want the room arrangement to facilitate whatever you are doing: group work, student movement, skits, floor time, etc. Teacher assistance. How will they get your assistance? You need to teach students of all ages the proper way to ask for your assistance. Also, you need to make students aware of how and when you will provide that assistance. Monitoring of students. How will you hold them accountable? How will you make sure that everything is going the way you want it to go? Explain to them how the work should be done and what the consequences are for not doing it as agreed. Expectations. You need to be very clear about your expectations, and to the students, you need to communicate those expectations. This means you're going to establish behavior norms. You want to train students so they know exactly what they are supposed to be doing. You have to build accountability for both groups and individuals. So some kind of group accountability during group work and individual student accountability if you're doing independent work. Assess and reflect what you're doing. The best advice I can give you is to start small. Start small and do it really well. If you're going to do group work, start with small group instructions the first couple of times. Check if the other students can work independently for 10 minutes and use that time to give extra instruction to a small group. Remember, the logistics are something that you have to learn and perfect by starting small. Also, try not to do everything every day. You will burn yourself out. In order to do this well, you must be very well prepared and organized. You cannot do everything every single day. Build on the foundations that you have made by implementing something today and expanding on it tomorrow. Let's recap. Differentiate students by their learning styles and abilities. Presentation. Plan how are you going to teach that class by being prepared and organized at all times. Process. How are the students going to do the lessons? Product. How will students demonstrate their knowledge to you? Train students. Don't jump right into the curriculum. Take time to train the students so that they understand what the expectations are when they are doing group work, instructional strategies, and individual contracts. Remember always to start small and build on your knowledge with every lesson.